Kara and Guillermo are living apart, but the real problem is not the second address. It is the fact that they do not agree on why it happened. Kara calls it temporary space. Guillermo describes it like a boundary he should have set months ago. That is not a small difference. One person believes the marriage is paused. The other seems to be asking whether the marriage as it currently exists is worth returning to. And the way Guillermo left makes the situation even more serious. There was no giant explosion at the door.
There was no dramatic goodbye.
Guillermo stayed after the argument, followed his normal routine, and acted like nothing had changed. Then, several days later, he quietly packed his things and left while Kara believed he was going to work. That does not look like an impulsive reaction. It looks like someone who had already decided that another argument would accomplish nothing. But Kara's response reveals the deeper emotional problem. She is upset that Guillermo left, but she appears even more disturbed by how calm he seems without her. Because if Guillermo is struggling alone, Kara can still believe he needs her. If he looks more peaceful, more focused, and more confident after leaving, then she has to consider a much harder possibility. Maybe Guillermo did not leave because he was confused. Maybe he left because, for the first time in a long time, distance felt easier than marriage. And that is where this stops being a simple separation story. This becomes a power struggle over respect, adulthood, and who actually gets to make decisions inside the relationship. Kara's explanation sounds careful and controlled. She says they still love each other.
She says they need time to think.
She says living separately is helping them avoid constant conflict. On the surface, that sounds reasonable. Couples do sometimes take space without ending their marriage. But Kara's wording creates more questions than answers. She does not explain exactly when Guillermo left. She does not offer a real timeline for when he might return. She does not clearly describe what they agreed to work on during the separation. Instead, she uses words like trying, hoping, and figuring things out. Those words do not prove the marriage is over. But they also do not sound like two people following the same recovery plan. The biggest problem is that Guillermo apparently does not describe the separation as mutual. He says he never agreed to the version Kara is now presenting. From his perspective, the living arrangement became the final result of several decisions where his opinion was either ignored or requested too late to matter. That changes everything. Kara sees herself as the person holding the relationship together. Guillermo sees her as the person controlling what the relationship is allowed to become. And the conflict behind his decision was not only about one fight. It had been building through work schedules, spending choices, household responsibilities, and Guillermo's growing desire to make decisions without being corrected. Kara believes she carries more of the pressure. She plans ahead. She handles problems quickly. She thinks about consequences before they arrive. Guillermo feels she uses that responsibility as proof that her judgment should carry more weight. That difference probably existed from the beginning. Kara's confidence may have once felt like stability. She was direct, organized, and willing to move the relationship forward. Guillermo may have appreciated that, especially during moments when their future felt uncertain. But personality strengths do not remain strengths automatically. They have to change as the relationship changes. What once felt like leadership can eventually feel like control. What once felt like support can eventually feel like supervision. Guillermo does not want to remain the younger partner who always needs help catching up. He wants to be treated like an equal adult, even when his choices are slower, less polished, or different from Kara's. The breaking point comes when Kara makes a major financial decision involving their shared savings without fully consulting him. Kara sees the choice as practical. She believes the situation required quick action. In her mind, she is solving a problem before it gets worse. Guillermo sees something else. He sees shared money being moved through a decision that was already made before his opinion was seriously considered. The amount of money matters, but the emotional message matters more. That decision tells Guillermo that Kara trusts her own judgment more than she trusts their partnership. Then Kara reportedly says she is tired of waiting for him to catch up with the life she wants. That is the sentence that changes the argument. Money can be earned again. A housing decision can be reversed. But once your spouse tells you that you are delaying the life they really want, you start wondering whether they see you as a partner or an obstacle. Guillermo does not hear, "We need to move faster." He hears, "You are the reason my life is not better." That is a much more damaging message. And this is where the difference between leadership and control becomes impossible to ignore. Leadership makes room for another person's voice, even when that voice is inconvenient. Control makes the decision first, then explains why disagreement was not practical. Kara may honestly believe she is protecting their future. She may have real reasons to feel Guillermo avoids difficult choices or delays important responsibilities. But good intentions do not erase the emotional effect. When one partner constantly becomes the manager, the other partner eventually stops feeling like a spouse. They start feeling like the person who is always being evaluated. Every choice becomes a test. Every mistake becomes evidence. Every disagreement becomes proof that they are not ready. That kind of dynamic can make Guillermo feel small, but it can also make Kara feel exhausted. Because the controlling partner often does not see themselves as controlling. They see themselves as the only person preventing everything from falling apart. That is why this relationship is more complicated than simply blaming Kara. Guillermo has his own unhealthy pattern. He avoids conflict until resentment has already made the decision for him. He stays quiet. He absorbs criticism. He tries to keep the peace. Then, once he feels emotionally finished, he takes a major step without giving Kara a real chance to respond. Leaving quietly may have protected him from another argument, but it also created a different trust problem. Kara cannot know when Guillermo is truly reaching his limit if he keeps his deepest feelings hidden until he acts. That creates the cycle we keep seeing. Kara becomes more forceful because Guillermo withdraws. Guillermo withdraws further because Kara becomes more forceful. She believes pressure is the only way to get an honest answer. He believes silence is the only way to keep his answer from being challenged. Both reactions make emotional sense. Neither reaction repairs the marriage. And here is the detail that makes Guillermo's side especially painful. He says living apart is the first major decision he has made in a long time without Kara questioning whether he thought it through. He is not celebrating the separation itself. He is celebrating the freedom to make one adult decision without feeling like he needs approval. That should terrify Kara, because it means independence is now emotionally connected to being away from her. For Kara, this may feel completely unfair. She may believe she questioned Guillermo because his past behavior forced her to. She may think, I was not controlling him. I was helping because he was not handling things. But help becomes doubt when it never stops. Support becomes humiliating when every conversation carries the message that one person is capable and the other person is behind. Viewers will probably split into two groups over this. Some fans will strongly sympathize with Guillermo. They will see a younger husband who has spent too much time being managed, corrected, and spoken to like he cannot be trusted. Those viewers may believe leaving was the first time Guillermo seriously defended his dignity. Another section of the audience will defend Kara. They may argue Guillermo wants the freedom of adulthood without consistently accepting the responsibility that comes with it. They may see Kara as the partner doing the planning, carrying the stress, and taking the blame whenever she finally becomes frustrated. Both reactions can be true at the same time. Kara can be controlling. Guillermo can be avoidant. One behavior does not cancel the other. In fact, those two traits often create the exact relationship we are watching now. One person overfunctions because the other underfunctions. Then the person doing more becomes resentful, and the person being managed becomes defensive. The roles grow stronger until neither person remembers how to act differently. But the emotional balance shifts after Guillermo moves out. At first, Kara appears confident. She believes he will return once independent life becomes difficult. She seems convinced that distance will remind Guillermo how much he depends on her. That confidence may look strong, but it is also protecting her from panic. Kara needs to believe Guillermo will struggle. If he cannot handle life alone, then her role in the marriage is validated. She was not controlling. She was necessary. But Guillermo does not appear to fall apart. He creates a routine. He focuses on work. He sleeps better. He starts making plans without checking whether Kara approves. That is when her confidence begins to fade. Then Guillermo returns to collect more personal items. It is only clothing, documents, and a few things he left behind. Nothing about the moment seems dramatic. But small actions can reveal more than huge arguments. Someone taking temporary space normally leaves most of their life in place. Someone slowly removing personal belongings may be preparing for a future that lasts longer than expected. Kara asks whether he still considers the house his home. Guillermo answers that he does not know what feels like home anymore. That line is more painful than shouting. He is not threatening divorce. He is not insulting Kara. He is questioning whether the marriage still gives him emotional safety. A home is not only where your belongings are stored. It is where you can disagree without feeling punished. It is where you can make a mistake without losing your dignity. It is where your voice still matters, even when your partner believes they have the better plan. Guillermo is suggesting that he no longer experiences the relationship that way. And just as Kara begins to understand that this may not be a short break, another reveal raises the stakes. Guillermo is considering signing his own lease or taking work farther away. He says the plan is not revenge. He wants to prove that he can create stability without depending on Kara's decisions. From his perspective, that is independence. From Kara's perspective, it looks like an exit strategy. This exposes Kara's biggest contradiction. She has often wanted Guillermo to become more independent. She wanted him to take initiative, make plans, and show more confidence. But now that his independence reduces her influence, it frightens her. That does not necessarily make Kara dishonest. It may mean she wanted Guillermo to become independent inside the life she had already designed. She wanted him to take responsibility, but she still expected the final direction to remain familiar. Guillermo is no longer asking for more freedom inside Kara's structure. He is building a separate structure. That is why she sees his growth as rejection. But Guillermo also has a contradiction. He wants equal decision-making, yet he often fails to communicate before resentment becomes permanent. He does not say, "This is becoming unbearable." He waits until he is already looking for another place to live. Silence can protect someone during a difficult moment, but it does not create equality. An equal partner has to speak while the relationship can still respond. Kara accuses Guillermo of using the separation to build a life that leaves her out. Guillermo replies that Kara built their marriage around her preferences first. That exchange captures the entire problem. Both people feel excluded. Kara feels excluded from Guillermo's new life. Guillermo felt excluded from the marriage they were already living. Then the families get involved, and the situation becomes even more dangerous. Kara's family believes Guillermo is abandoning his responsibilities. They encourage Kara to protect herself financially and stop chasing someone who chose to leave. Guillermo's family believes Kara has always dominated him. They tell Guillermo not to return unless she agrees to treat him like an equal. Both families believe they are protecting someone they love. But family protection can quickly become pressure. Once every private disagreement is repeated to relatives, the original couple stops arguing alone. They start arguing with entire teams standing behind them. Now compromise feels like betrayal. If Kara admits Guillermo has a point, she may feel like she is agreeing with people who already judge her. If Guillermo returns without clear changes, his family may see it as proof that he allowed Kara to control him again. That turns reconciliation into a loyalty test. And then Kara reveals that she considered changing the locks. This is the moment that will divide viewers the most. Kara says she felt powerless. Guillermo could leave, return, collect items, and decide when they would talk. She believed changing the locks might force him to take the situation seriously. In her mind, it was not about ending the marriage. It was about creating a consequence. But Guillermo hears a completely different message. He hears that Kara still believes she controls whether he belongs inside their shared home. He asks whether she wants a husband or someone who needs permission. Kara becomes emotional and says Guillermo is turning her fear into cruelty. And honestly, that may be the most important argument in the entire story.
Kara fears abandonment. Guillermo fears control.
When Kara feels abandoned, she reaches for more control. When Guillermo feels controlled, he creates more distance. Her attempt to pull him closer pushes him away. His attempt to protect himself confirms her fear that he is leaving. Neither person is reacting to the current argument anymore. They are reacting to the emotional danger underneath it. That is why the lock threat is not really about a door. It is about authority. Who decides when Guillermo belongs in the home? Who decides whether the separation is temporary? Who has the power to define what happens next? Some viewers will call Kara's threat a major red flag. They will say it confirms Guillermo's concern that she uses control whenever she feels insecure. Another section of the audience may argue Guillermo created the uncertainty by leaving without a clear agreement. They may believe Kara had a right to protect her space and know whether he planned to return. Then there will be viewers who think the conflict is really about money. That theory makes sense because financial decisions often expose deeper relationship problems. The partner who earns more, plans more, or manages the accounts may begin to believe they deserve more authority. The other partner may feel controlled but remain financially dependent, which makes every disagreement feel even more personal. Money is not the entire cause here. Money is where the power imbalance becomes visible. The strangest part is that Kara and Guillermo are still acting emotionally connected. They communicate regularly. They sometimes eat together. They discuss responsibilities. They notice when the other person seems distant. But they avoid physical affection, long-term plans, and any real date for Guillermo's return. They are not fully together. They are not officially finished. That middle space feels safer because it preserves options. Kara does not have to face permanent loss. Guillermo does not have to decide whether he is truly leaving. They remain close enough to stay attached but distant enough to avoid full vulnerability. The problem is that temporary arrangements can quietly become permanent lifestyles. Every week apart creates new habits. Guillermo becomes more comfortable making decisions alone. Kara becomes more used to protecting herself without him. Eventually, returning requires more than moving belongings. It requires giving up the emotional independence both people have started building. Guillermo asks for counseling before he moves back. Kara agrees, but she worries counseling will become a list of everything she did wrong. That fear reveals how Kara sees herself. She believes she has been the responsible partner. She probably expects counseling to show Guillermo how much pressure she has carried. When the conversation turns toward control, Kara feels misunderstood. She believes her sacrifices are being rewritten as character flaws. During counseling, Guillermo admits he had considered leaving long before the final argument. That confession shocks Kara because she believed the move was impulsive. Guillermo explains that he has felt dismissed for months. He remembers moments when Kara laughed at his ideas, corrected him in front of other people, or made decisions before asking him. Kara does not deny every example. Instead, she says Guillermo often delayed important responsibilities. She felt forced to step in, then blamed when stepping in became control. That explanation matters because it shows how both people created these roles. One partner becomes the manager because the other person avoids decisions. The other person avoids more decisions because every attempt gets criticized. The manager feels exhausted. The managed partner feels incapable. Eventually, both people resent the roles they keep repeating. Then the counselor asks each of them to choose one concrete step toward reconciliation. Their answers reveal the real stalemate. Kara wants Guillermo to return home first. She believes they can only repair the marriage by living together and practicing better communication every day. Guillermo wants the marriage to improve first. He says he will only consider returning after they establish respect, financial boundaries, and equal decision-making. Kara sees his conditions as punishment. Guillermo sees them as protection. Both say they want the same result. Neither wants to take the first emotional risk. Kara wants Guillermo's presence as proof that he is committed. Guillermo wants Kara's behavior to change as proof that he will be respected. Each person is waiting for safety before offering safety. That is why the separation continues. The real reason Kara and Guillermo are living apart is not one secret affair, one financial choice, or one terrible argument. Their marriage has become a struggle over responsibility, adulthood, respect, and control. Kara does not trust Guillermo to move quickly enough. Guillermo does not trust Kara to leave enough room for his voice. Kara believes control prevents chaos. Guillermo believes distance protects his dignity. Their love may still be real, but love cannot fix a power imbalance that both people continue to reinforce. The biggest warning sign is not the separate homes. Temporary space can help some couples. The warning sign is that Kara and Guillermo do not agree on what the separation means.